We are live.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Blu-XPerience, another Thursday to remember. We are in the house, and as you guys can see already, we have an extra special guest today. So, we are about to get into it, man. Guys, we've been waiting for this one. Absolutely, we've been happy and looking forward to, and knew that we had this guest booked with us today. We're going to have Evan from Flight Sim Expo. And it's an event that we met at Me and Blue, and we'll talk about it a little bit. And now we get to go and meet again there and meet all the rest of you guys are going to be showing up to Flight Sim Expo today. And we have a lot to talk about on the show. So we're not even going to waste any time with the intros, but welcome aboard, guys. Glad to have you on the Blu-XPerience, another Thursday to remember. What's going on, Blue? How you been, man?
I'm good. Definitely excited to welcome Evan onto the show today. Make sure you guys shout out Evan here. Thanks to him, and I'm sure a great team behind him, we even have FS Expo, and we have that opportunity. So super excited to talk about that, talk about how that's going to work out this year, and just everything around. We're still going to talk Flight Sim. We're going to talk a little bit about VATSIM, a little bit about FlightSim Association, a little bit about everything, you know. But yeah, really centered around FS Expo today, so it's gonna be dope. I'm excited.
Ben, how you doing, man? Welcome aboard.
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited as well.
Absolutely, man. I love your background, by the way. I mean, you have an audience.
This is Flight Sim Expo 2019 Orlando behind me.
Wow.
If you guys have a 4K screen and you zoom in close enough, you might find XP's bald head in the background.
True. We were there, man. We were live in the house. I actually do remember that whole setup and the color and the ballroom. It was my first expo of any kind, period. And I tell you, I was not disappointed being in Flight Sim Expo. I mean, I was new in the Flight Sim community, like really new. I probably had like 20 subs on YouTube, just getting into flying. My computer was a potato. But yeah, seriously, but showing up there, and I have to tell you guys, the organization from start to finish when I went in 2019 was so good. You show up, you check in, you have to check in to the desk, you tell them your name, and you end up getting a swag bag, literally with I still drink out of my Aerosoft coffee mug to this day. This morning I used it. Sim Market, there you go, Aerosoft Sim Market, thank you, coffee mug. Yeah. I still have my name tag that I hung around my neck, and a bunch of other things. As a matter of fact, on this iPad right here, I'm going to show you guys this. This Navigraph iPad stand.
I have that.
Exactly. I use it.
It's here somewhere.
You guys see me, exactly. So when you guys see me live stream, that's what the iPad is sitting on. So I'm just saying that to say that Flight Sim Expo, if you guys haven't actually gotten your ticket yet and considering it, you need to do it. You need to get yourself in this because it's more than what you think it's going to be. Imagine what you think it's going to be, and it's going to be more than that. And Evan is here to talk about all that. We're here for the entire hour, and that's what we're going to be doing. So Evan, let me shut up and let you talk, man. How you doing, man? How's your day?
I'm great. Yeah, this is my second one of these already today. I did one for YouTube earlier that's coming out at some point. So I'm ready to go. I'm all fired up. I'm ready to talk Expo. I think I have all my answers right now.
Nice. So
I should know what I'm talking about.
For people who don't know, who the heck are you?
My name is Evan. I think I've been around the Flight Sim community for about 20 years now, coming up on it most of that time as a virtual controller, either on VATSIM and in the precursor days to VATSIM FSXP on GameSpy, if anyone remembers those wonderful days of like Juliana Pro ATC and stuff like that. That was good times.
Throwback.
So now VATSIM since 2015, part of the group at Boston. If you ever fly through the Boston Center airspace and you encounter a controller who sounds like they don't know what they're doing with a slight Canadian accent, that's me. So if you've ever heard, you've probably recognized it. And other than that, I've been involved since the beginning of Flight Sim Expo. Phil and I launched this show in 2018 in Vegas, did 2019 in Orlando, which we were just talking about. And then obviously last year we skipped a year. We were planning to be in Vegas when, of course, all of what has happened in the last 2 years happened. And now we're excited to be back in San Diego coming up in just over a month. We said about 43 days, I think we were talking about earlier. So it's getting close. Yeah.
Yep.
So tell me more about like how you actually got started into Flight Sim, and then how you ended up with like doing ATC and what interested you in that.
Yeah, all entirely by accident, and all I think before YouTube, or it may have been after YouTube, but certainly not when we had like live streaming.
Before YouTube existed.
do now. I don't think it. Well, what was YouTube? 2005 maybe. So it must have been after that. I wasn't that early, but it was like 2007, 8. So YouTube certainly wasn't like you can watch a content creator live streaming a flight. That was not a thing when I got started. And I don't really remember. I was I had done a couple of intro flights in a real airplane, and I just like flying was everything to me. I loved it. This was when I was in high school, and I remember I downloaded the trial version of FSX at the time, which was the first time I ever flew, and I had the trial version for like 3 months because my parents hadn't, I guess, bought for me the full version yet. Didn't have a yoke or a joystick. And you talk about your computer being a potato. I mean, this would have been like Windows XP, I think. So literally, like I would fly that. Remember, there were 2 missions, and one of them was the Juliana landing in the CRJ, I think it was, or maybe it was a business jet. Do you remember that?
I don't. I didn't get a chance to do that one. I don't go that far back.
So you had to it was like there were like 2 missions you could fly without paying for the thing, and one of them was like they put you on a 5-mile final at Juliana in this airplane, and you had to land, and it's like the short runway over the beach and all that stuff, right? And all I had was like a keyboard, and so I remember I must have done that thing like 100 times and crashed every single time. Like it was so bad, and the loading would take longer than the flight would, so it would be like crash, 10 minutes of loading, 3 minutes of flying, crash, 10 minutes of loading. Like it was it was great. And so like my parents must have bought me like the full copy of FSX like for Christmas. I knew like nothing. I mean, I think the first time I connected to like FSX's multiplayer, I went to some server and like I pressed the talk button. I'm like, hello, is anyone there? Like that was how I first communicated with ATC. I didn't know that you could use like the nav GPS switch. So I used to navigate by like the heading bug and following the little magenta line on the GPS. It was wonderful.
But at least you knew how to like get somewhere. Like,
Yeah, I figured it out eventually. Yeah.
When I first started out, I just took off in a straight line, did a few like banks, and then landed in the field because I didn't know how to find an airport. That's all I did.
Man.
Yeah, I'm sure I did that too.
I came on board an X-Plane 10, and that to me was awesome. Like the opening scene of X-Plane 10 with the stutters and the slideshow I thought it was supposed to be a video. It's a slideshow. And you simmers these days don't know how good you have it, man.
That's for sure.
Mature platforms that you have, plus now the Xbox, that it's just, you guys have it good. You have 0 complaints to make, really.
That's for sure.
But listen to you describe that process of just flying and having the patience to wait until it reloads before you go fly again. Now, if my sim doesn't come up in like a minute, I'm pissed. And
then
I remember I would literally. Sorry, go ahead, Blue.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I would literally I would load a flight. Like I don't know, at like Toronto or something. I would go take a shower, like have dinner, and come back, and it'd be like 95%. Like that's what it was like. Now, if you had a decent computer, it wasn't like that, but that's what I had to deal with for a long time. It was awful.
Wow. Yeah, I think we do have it good today. I was gonna say that you mentioned trying to do the Princess Juliana landing on a keyboard, and then today it's kind of like, there's people playing Flight Sim right now on keyboard, not as many as it used to be, but back then it was normal to play. Like, what is a joystick? You rarely had your hands on the joystick. Most people were playing keyboard and mouse in it. I remember trying to press the keys, and like if I pressed the aileron left key, it like ticked it down a notch, and you had to remember how many times you pressed the left, so that you could even it back out to the right.
Wow.
Yep. Wow. Absolutely.
Same with the trim, everything. It was crazy.
It's funny because I started with a Logitech 3D Pro. I finally went out and bought that thing. It was like $30, but it had everything on it. You could have your rudder pedals, a twist grip, it has a joystick, and you have the throttle on one side, and you had all the 8 or 10 buttons on it. And honest to guys, I hacked it so I could separate the throttle from the joystick. I cut the throttle section out, extended the wires. I soldered like a piece of wire across so I could have it on my right hand and left hand separately.
Oh my God.
And that's how I was flying. That's how I actually did a couple of my first streams until I finally said, you know what, this is crazy. I need to actually get some proper controls here. But it's funny. I'm bringing that up because with your FlightSim Association, we were speaking a little bit earlier, and you were saying that, apart from FSExpo, Evan's a part of FlightSim Association, and that is how new is FlightSim Association, Evan? How new?
We launched it in March.
Launched it in March, and Evan can explain better than I can, but it's basically a way to help new simmers get into simming without spending $1 million. Just to start. And go ahead, you
Exactly.
can explain better than me, Evan. So what
I
is
mean,
Flight Sim Association?
yeah, you basically hit it. So if you go to FlightSimAssociation.com, you'll see the website right now. But that's exactly what it is. We know, I mean, I'm an airline pilot, but didn't get this far in my story because I take forever to say anything. But I'm an airline pilot. I totally grew up on Flight Sim. 100% Flight Sim is the reason I'm an airline pilot right now. And I thought to myself, when we look at how we as flight simmers got into it, like you just heard my story, we heard your stories. That's like everyone's story. We probably started with nothing or a very simple setup. We might have had a yoke or a joystick, and like that was it. And if you look at what material is out there for getting started in flight sim, if you go like the real world pilot route, so you go to some of the big associations that do real world flying stuff, a lot of the time what they're saying is you should go buy a panel and you should buy a GPS, and it's like a $5,000 or a $6,000 investment in some cases. And a lot of the time, that's what some pilots are thinking a flight sim has to look like. And hey, if you get there, like that's amazing, right? But most of us didn't actually start that way. Most of us actually started with a very simple setup we built over time. So what we've tried to do with FlightSim Association is say you can certainly do that if you want, and here's some resources to get there. But if you just download a simulator, go to your local Walmart or electronics store, buy a joystick, and plug it in, like just do that as a
Yeah.
real big starting point. And maybe you want to get on VATSIM or Pilot Edge or something like that to really get the value of the simulator. But I'm trying to just say to people like you can certainly build and you can certainly grow, but let's not forget that a lot of us started at small times. So that's a big part of what FlightSim Association does if you're a new simmer. And then for folks who are established in the community like you guys, what we're trying to do is stuff like that big cross community panel we did back in July. We had over 1,200 people watching concurrently, which was awesome. And it wasn't watching us, it was watching through content creators. So what we're trying to do is say, look, a couple times a year, like 2 or 3 months at a time, let's bring everyone together and let's do a big, panel discussion. So we had 6 or 7 developers on video. We had a bunch more on the chat, and we just said, let's talk about what does the release of the Xbox mean for our sim community. This was like a couple of days before the sim launched, and we also got about 10 content creators. I see Sizzling Popcorn in here. He was helping us out with that, and we just said, like, you guys restream this thing, watch it with your viewers, and have a conversation. And so don't come on FSL. You can watch it on our website if you really wanted to. But the whole point was let's bring all of these like individual content communities together. You guys talk about it, react to it, give your opinion, and just chat with your users. And we thought, like, let's try and do something that's kind of like that a couple times a year and just bring us all together in between these big shows. So kind of something like, Flight Sim Expo experience, but throughout the year, that's what the association is about.
Gotcha. I
Yeah.
know that
No,
when you
awesome.
guys first launched, there was a little bit of controversy circling the launch of the site. I remember I heard about it before it came out. I was a part of the group of people who were allowed to like check it out and test it and all that kind of stuff. And I like the idea of it because at the core, you're basically what it sounds like is you're trying to unite the community. No matter where you are, no matter what stage, whether you're brand new, whether you're been around a while, whether you're on P3D, X-Plane, whatever platform you are, you're trying to unite everybody in one place. And also not just the community as far as like us, people, the users, but also the developers as well. Because I feel like there is quite a lot, and I think we mentioned this before the show. There's sometimes a disconnect between the developers
Yeah, I agree.
and the actual community themselves. Like we all like to yell and complain and talk about the stuff that we love and we hate about all kind of stuff. We don't always feel that we're heard. We don't even know whether or not we're being heard.
Yeah.
We don't really get that initial reply from a developer saying, hey, this is not actually how it goes, or this is how it goes. And so being able to, like what you guys have been doing, where you're having developers on your site and on your live streams that are actually being able to connect and let us get insight on what they're doing, their mindsets and things like that. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. I think developers are great about engaging, with their own customers on their forums and stuff. What I'm saying is let's bring that out of the forums and let's just have a conversation as a group. So we just did that thing with X-Plane a couple of days ago where they did a live presentation on the future of their sim from EA's AirVenture that we did on our YouTube channel and through the association. When was the last time you've ever seen X-Plane live stream anything? And how many people know what Austin Meyer looks like unless you've gone to his website, right? So I think it's really neat that he's there answering questions from the community. And, yes, we can do this on a forum, but it's not the same. Like if you've ever watched Austin on video, you can see how passionate and how excited he is about X-Plane.
Yes.
You don't get that if you just read a forum post or read a blog article. You have to see them to like really get the full experience. And so obviously the show, at FlightSim Expo, you can get that. We sort of thought, okay, like how do we bring this, to pass in between the different shows when it isn't always possible to come together in person? And yeah, like let's get people like Aerosoft. I don't think Aerosoft had ever done a live stream before in their history until we did one with them. And they were saying like, wow, we can actually answer these questions in real time and have a conversation. Like this is really neat stuff. And so we're trying to just get the developers to realize that, hey, this is a great opportunity to engage with the community, to just let people see your faces and to let people understand like developing for Flight Sim is a very difficult thing. It's hugely time consuming. It costs a ton of money, like way more than I ever thought. And so if we can help bridge that gap, because if you're a flight simulator, you're like $70 for an airplane, that's expensive. And if you're a developer, you're like $70 for an airplane, that's cheap. So it's like let's talk about why that is and try and get some of that insight across so people have a bit of a better understanding to like what actually goes into this stuff. And I think that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, people are like complaining about the prices of airliners, and the developers are out there skipping meals.
Exactly,
for sure.
Let me back up what Evan was saying. It's one thing, as you said, to talk to somebody on a forum and you type back and forth and then you're tired of typing and whatever. It's the next thing to actually hear the words coming out of their mouth. And I did have a chance to talk to I Bills on a previous podcast. And just to listen to the guys talk, you can just hear the passion in their voice of what they said they were going to do and how they're going to deliver. And you couldn't help but saying, these guys are real. Yeah. And you know what? They brought it. You can tell by their work. And so if we can see other developers doing the same thing, would be nice. Not everybody wants to show their face or talk or maybe shy and they're better developing, but it would be nice to have them, including in all those discussions at times. So that's a great thing that FlightSim Association is doing. And I like that, man. Definitely.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, we don't want to be either like a podcast. We don't want to, step on your toes. Like you guys do the interviewing. I'm a terrible interviewer. So I don't want to do that, right? I just want a developer to come out and be the showcase. Like I will host it and I'll be the person behind the scenes, throwing them questions. But it's like, look, Aerosoft, this is your show. Orbix posted their development roadmap on their forums a couple of months ago. I don't know how many people saw that. I would have loved it if they came out and actually did so you said you saw it or you didn't?
I did not see it, no.
Yeah, like me neither, right? But if Anna came onto a stream and said, "Here's what we're going to be doing," like I would love that. I would watch the crap out of that, right? So like I wish we had more developers kind of saying like, let's actually use this new technology that we have of live streaming and let's engage with the community and let's show people we are human. Yes, we make mistakes, and yes, we actually do read all those comments, and yes, they hurt.
Oh, yeah. I'm smiling now because basically developers, what Evan is saying is that there's FlightSim Association, there's the Blu-XPerience, there's other platforms. If you drop something on your Twitch channel, no, not even Twitch, if you drop it on your Instagram or whatever, it might get audience, but if you drop it as here on these kind of new platforms, which is not really new, you get a wider reach. People will actually, get a chance to connect with you guys and be more involved and just anticipate your product even more than they do now. Because I didn't hear about the roadmap either. You know what I mean? There's so much going on in people's personal lives that they don't have a chance to actually go through and look for information. But if it's presented to them right in front of their face, they can get it right away. That's better, man. So yeah, I like that. Definitely.
And we also want to work with the content creators, like I said. So, if Orbix came on and did that kind of roadmap, I would want you guys to restream it and watch it with your own viewers, just like we're doing right now, and say, you guys react. Like if they say we're doing this airport, you guys should be saying, oh, that's cool, or I like that, or I don't like that. And, chatting with the folks in your chat like we're doing today, that's what we want to be able to build. Again, we can't do that every day because no one's going to want to do it, but a couple times a year, right? Let's all get everyone together. And again, that's what we did a couple of days ago back in July. It went super well. I watched Chewy's just because I happened to be looking at that when we were doing it. And like he had like 300-400 people that were watching. And he's like, every time somebody said something like, Winfried from Aerosoft said they're not going to develop for P3D anymore. And Chewy's like, reacting to that in real time and then talking to his viewers, and it's like it's a great show that they're all watching together. We're just helping put it on. I think that's what's really cool. And again, you're a developer, yes, you can put it on your forums, but you can't have 1,200 people watching you all at the same time. And I think that was really cool.
A question: does the FlightSim Association have a website or just a Facebook page? What do you guys have?
Yeah. Yeah, the website is FlightSimAssociation.com. That's where folks can join. It's free to join. If you'd like to help support us, you can also subscribe for $3 a month. That gives you access to a ton of product discounts, our Discord, a live chat during the streams so that you can ask questions directly to the developers, and a bunch of other perks that I don't need to get into right now, but folks can find out the information at FlightSimAssociation.com.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to drop the link in chat for you guys, FlightSimAssociation.com. Definitely check that out when you guys can. Just read up and see if you guys want to get involved in it, and check it out, man. Absolutely. This is, I was saying to you earlier before the stream that I love how the Flight Sim community has been around forever.
Yeah.
But it's like we're now using all the technology available to us
Yeah.
to reach out, other than just streaming every day and flying from point A to point B and having fun. That's good. I love that. That's the bread and butter. But just do more things, expand the community like other games have and so forth, other platforms have. And I think this is one way. And I'm like what you do with that, and what the Blu-XPerience is all about. And I'm just saying, I love it. I love that we're moving forward. It's 2021. Let's do some more stuff.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
like that you're doing something that's kind of pushing the community forward, right? Rather than kind of like a lot of people are they're doing big things, but they're really more capitalizing on trends, capitalizing on what's already here. But what you guys, I feel like, are doing are kind of like trying to expand and push forward and do something a bit different, right? Like your site is nothing like any other site. It's not a news website, it's not a pod, like you said, it's not a podcast site, but it's something completely different that the community doesn't have, and you're adding to that element, to that organicness. I think that's dope.
Yeah, thank you. And what's interesting is Real World has this. So there's two big aviation organizations in the US, AOPA and EAA. And so they've been around for years, like 70, 80 years. And they do stuff which we might get into one day, we don't do now, that is like advocacy. So the AOPA, like if the US government wants to say, we're going to close this airport, the AOPA will fight that. Like they will arrange a campaign and they will actually fight for pilots' rights. So we kind of, the usual example we use is, imagine if when Microsoft Flight Simulator was announced back in August 2019, actually at the end of our Orlando show, if we had this association, we could have gone to Microsoft and said, listen, guys, you need to make an SDK. You need to make sure that airplanes can be developed. You need to make sure the weather is right, because this is important stuff to simmers. And we could have actually had 60, 70 developers go into them saying, here's what we need. Because there was nothing like this, what happened is all the developers tried to go to Microsoft at the same time. They picked some, they left others out, and we have some things that are great if you're a scenery developer, and a lot of things that suck if you're an aircraft developer, quite frankly. And so if we had a group that was like, okay, we speak for the developers, and here's what we want, I think that would have maybe made a difference in how Microsoft brought this sim to our community.
Power in numbers, and numbers that are cohesive and in one unit moving together. Actually, what I love that. Next time we should be prepared if any new platform or anything comes out that we can speak in one voice and say, all right, we love that, but here's what you guys need to have ready for us, and we'll help you with it. You know what I mean? That's pretty good. I heard you said you were a real world pilot, commercial pilot.
Yeah, I'm an airline pilot. I fly the Embraer 175.
Really? You fly the E-Jet? Did we make fun of E-Jet guys?
No, it was the other E-Jet. But I mean, they're in the same category, so we could do this now.
What did you say about Embraer pilots? What do I have to defend?
No. It wasn't Embraer pilots. It was oh my god, jeez. No, welcome, man. Actually, you know what? I didn't know that. I just picked up on that we were saying it. So, full time in it, still part time in it was wow.
Yeah, I took a bit of a break for COVID. They are telling me I'm going back full time at the end of the month. We will see how that plays out, but I hope to go back to it. I mean, it's a ton of fun. Gives me a lot of time off to do stuff like this, which is nice. But I absolutely need an income, because FlightSim Expo does not pay any bills for anybody. So I love flying, would do it for free, but someone's got to pay for the food on the table. So it's currently the airlines.
And we're gonna get into the FlightSim Expo stuff, because you posted some statistics from it, and I was shocked at prices and what hotels charge and all kinds of different things. But we'll get there. How long have you been a commercial pilot?
I got my ticket. When did I get my ticket? I wasn't prepared for that question, I guess. 20 2015, I think 2016, I got my commercial license. So I was, let's go back a couple of years. So I graduated college, was working in an office job, totally nothing to do with flying. But my office happened to look over a small airport. And so I was sitting at the office, like formatting PowerPoint slides, the most boring stuff that you can imagine. And I was watching airplanes take off and land. And of course, I had, Boston Virtual Air TCC and VATSIM going on every night. And it's just like, you know what? I've got to go for it. So I quit my job, moved across the country, got a commercial pilot's license. Everyone thought I was crazy, and they were probably right. But I don't regret a second of it. I flew Navajos and King Airs out on the west coast of Canada for about 2.5 years.
Wow.
It was the most fun I think I've ever had flying. We did gravel strips. We did Seattle International Airport, where we parked beside a 737 and a King Air. That was hilarious. All the rampies were like taking pictures. They're like, look at the cute little plane. And I'm like, hey, man, I fly that plane.
Oh my God.
We did that. Yeah,
I'm
it
a
was
real
just
pilot.
so much fun. I mean, like crazy cool stuff that I should not have been allowed to do as an early 20s-year-old. And then a couple of years ago, as of 2018, came back here to middle of the country, and now gone on with the airlines and fly the Embraer 175 across the border all the time.
That is
Awesome,
really
man.
cool.
Awesome. So you're
That is
bringing
super
that
dope.
real world experience to the community and then some. And
Yes,
then
yeah, exactly. And
you're
I'm
bringing,
living the truth of how Flight Sim can help, like, or hurt, I guess, depending on which way you want to look at it. But got my private because of it, got my commercial job because of it, continue to be involved in Flight Sim because of the impact that it's had on my life. So if this was all a good choice, then Flight Sim has done great things. And if I go bankrupt because I became a pilot, then I'm going to blame Flight Sim.
oh boy. But it's funny because with all of that said, you also brought us Flight Sim Expo, the only one in the United States,
Yep.
as far as
You're
I
right.
know. I
Are you
mean,
guys at all associated with the one in Europe, or is that a completely different thing?
No, I mean we're good friends with them. So there's 4 Flight Sim shows that I know of, and someone in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong. There's one that happens in the UK, which I don't think is going to happen this year, but typically happens. There's one in the Netherlands. There's one in Australia,
Hmm.
and then there's us. And those are the only 4 that I know about. So we all talk because we're all good friends, and we're the only Flight Sim shows around. So we better at least know what each other are doing.
Yeah.
But we don't have any formal affiliation. It's run by the guys at Just Flight, actually, the one in the UK.
Oh, really? I
gotcha.
didn't know
That's a
that.
great show. I've been there 2 years now, and
Mhm.
it's a ton of fun. Plus, I love England, so any excuse to go there, I'm there.
Exactly. I think I might
So,
go to the other one too whenever
what
it comes out.
what made you decide to like start Flight Sim Expo? No
How,
disrespect, but of all
how was
people,
it born?
why you? Like, why did you say I'm gonna take on this? Like, again, no disrespect to you, but like, why did
Yeah,
you say,
yeah.
hey, I'm gonna be the guy to bring Flight Sim Expo to the U.S.?
It kind of just happened. So there was a previous edition of this conference that ran under a different name that I was kind of helping out with, and that really started organically as a meetup, really for Boston Virtual ATC. It was organized by another party that sort of said, "Hey, we're running this Flight Sim show. Does the community at BVA want to come over?" And we're like, "Well, sure. Like, let's do that." And it was the first time I'd met many people. Again, this is like 2013, so this is Facebook is around, but not to the same extent it is today. And so in many cases, like I met people I had known for 3 or 4 years online, but never seen their face, never, seen them other than just talking to them. And so that was a really cool experience, obviously. And I kind of got involved with that. And I said, hey, I'm happy to just send some emails to some developers and let's see if we can get them to come to the next show. And so we did that for a couple of years. And then some stuff happened. We ended up deciding to form our own show. It basically just came down to a difference of opinion as to like how things should be run. We thought this show needs to go big. It needs to go to places like Vegas and Orlando and San Diego, like cities that you'd want to go to on vacation. And
Mm-hmm.
there was a bit of disagreement on that. So really, it came down to like Phil and I felt like we were missing something in North America. We had an opportunity where the community was saying, "Hey, we want this show to continue, but we want it to go big," and we just basically stepped up to the plate and went for it. And we're glad we did.
I
Yep.
still regret to this day not going to the Vegas show.
Yeah,
I
I
was this close to
you missed
going.
out.
I was this
Yeah.
Should
close
have
to
gone.
going, and I just didn't. I just missed it by a little bit, but I made it to the Orlando one, and I loved it, man. And I think because I went to the Orlando one, I regret it even more because it was so much value in it. Like, I mean, you guys don't charge a whole lot for an expo like that, but let's get into kind of some of the nitty gritty. I mean, probably doesn't get talked about too much, but like, what are some of the difficulties of getting something like this off the ground in a place like Vegas, in a place like Orlando, San Diego?
Yeah, well, I mean, the problem with those places is they're super popular. Like that's where everyone wants to go. And so because of that, they can charge high prices. And I think the biggest challenge that we have as show organizers is to try and convey to the community that like we in Flight Sim think that $70 is expensive for an airliner, right? But this is the real world. We're not dealing with hotels that talk to Flight Sim people. We're dealing with
Mm-hmm.
hotels that are used to people who have a black Amex card and they spend $500 on a bottle of wine, and that's no big deal for them. And so when we go to these places, we have to be like, no, 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 we don't want caviar. We don't want fancy steak tips. We want pizza and beer. Like, and it's actually a real eye-opening experience a lot of the times for these venues because they're just not used to that. So we were kind of chatting before the show, what does this kind of stuff cost? To rent the space is something like $50,000 to $75,000. That's just for the space. That doesn't include tables or chairs or electricity or anything like that. The food, so our social event, I was just pricing that out today. So we give people one free drink and kind of some appetizers at the Saturday social. That's included in your ticket. That costs us about $25,000. That one event for an hour and a half of food is 25
For
grand.
one day.
And so
Oh my God.
not even one day, that's an hour.
Oh, geez.
That's an hour. Never mind the lunch that we do for our platinum exhibitors. Never mind the stuff we do on the Friday, the lunch that we have available. Like people in Orlando, it was kind of funny. We had like an $8 hamburger for lunch or something like that. And people were like, that's expensive. And I'm like, dude, this is the cheapest I've ever seen. Like I couldn't believe the hotel came up with that. And someone was like, well, my ticket should include lunch. And I showed him the menu that we are like that the hotel gives us. And lunch is $72 per plate. And he's like, oh, I guess maybe my ticket shouldn't include lunch. So that doesn't count AV, the audio visual, the live streaming, just the live streaming, not the room and the microphones, just the live streaming for this year's show is $20,000.
Wow.
And here we are doing this on YouTube very easily, right? But
For free.
when you're dealing with an actual for free, yeah, exactly.
I'll bring
But
some
when you're dealing
I'll
with
bring
an
some
auditorium,
hotspots, man. I'll just bring some hotspots and you can use
I think
those.
it should be required. Everyone bring a hotspot to the
Well,
hotel.
Well, that's the thing is though, when you're dealing with an auditorium, right? You can't just like sit there with your phone because you need a
Yeah.
good quality audio recording. So it's got to come out of the sound system. Then you need a good quality camera. Then you need good lighting, which there isn't good lighting by default. So you got to string up some lights to get a decent quality video. Then you can't actually like if you wanted to bring in your own camera and stream, you can't do that because there's rules from the venue that say the union has the right to do the work there, and we respect those rules. So their people have got to do that work. And if you wanted to bring in your own external crew, you can do that, but you pay double the price because you pay their labor and you pay the hotel's labor, right? So these are things that we kind of discovered over time, and we've gotten very good at negotiating with hotels. I go to about probably 20, maybe 25 hotels just to find the one that works for us every year, and it's all a big negotiation with them to say, we are very different from the people that you normally see, but we're very cool. Like, how often do you have a flight sim show at your hotel, right? And yes, our people aren't going to spend, $500 on a bottle of wine, but they'll buy 3 or 4 beers at the bar if you let them, and they'll have a great time. We're going to bring 2,000 people here, and you have a good conversation. And we've been really, really fortunate with our hotel partners that we've been able to, figure out what's important to us and say, let's focus on these things, and some of these other benefits that you think are great for your other corporate events, we don't need those because we wouldn't use them.
Wow. All right. So that's crazy. Just listen to that. But I've been to the 2019 Flight Sim Expo, as I said before, and I absolutely love it. But in your own words, for someone who's never been to a Flight Sim Expo, has no idea what the hell we're talking about, what is Flight Sim Expo in your mind, your explanation? What is it they can expect there to be? As a matter of fact, I actually do think the price is cheap. The ticket price for one day is actually not expensive at all, considering other places, other things I've done. But what can somebody expect at Flight Sim Expo if it's going to be their first one?
Yeah, so I mean, you're right, because this is a totally unique thing, and if you haven't been before, it is like really tough to kind of explain what it's like. And for you guys as well, you can feel free to jump in with your own experiences. But for me, even like before I went to the show in Cosford, it was very hard to explain what it's all about. So I'm going to try my best. It is the conference and trade show about flight simulation. So what that means is we've got a huge exhibit hall. There'll be this year 30 plus exhibitors who are going to be displaying everything that they have. Most of them are hardware people, so you're going to be able to try out virtual reality, Thrustmaster products from Real Sim Gear, Flight Sim Build, and a whole bunch of hardware people. The brand new Turtle Beach stuff that's coming out, I think probably in a couple of days here for pre-orders very soon anyway. Honeycomb has got some new stuff to show. So nowhere else in the world can you basically go somewhere and try 6 or 7 different flight sim controls all in a line like right in front of you. Try virtual reality if you don't have it. That stuff is all right there. And then beside that, we've got, sorry, I don't know
Go
if you
ahead,
can hear
man.
the dog in the background, but he's
No, no,
getting
it's
a little
good.
annoying.
It's cool.
Anyway, beside that, we've got two seminar rooms actually. So there'll be 30 plus seminars going on at the same time where you've got experts across different flight simulation communities. You've got developers coming out sharing their latest products and a whole bunch of other kind of cool stuff going on where you can listen to those talks. And those are happening all throughout the weekend. And then beyond that, third piece of this is just the opportunity to like hang out face to face. So if you've been there before, at least for me, like I don't have a lot of real friends who know about flight sim. Like if I start talking about flight sim, they're like, oh, that's kind of cool, but they don't really like get it, and I can't really talk to them. But at a show like this, everyone is as much of a flight sim nerd as I am, and so you can go around the room, you can talk to like anybody, and you're like, yeah, like flight sim, and it's just so easy to make
Like,
friends, get into
spaceship.
conversation. Yeah, like where can you do that, right? And I think that's what the really cool piece of it is.
Yeah.
Is just that opportunity. Whether you're meeting like Austin Meyer, Creative X Plane in person and talking to him and giving him, ideas, whether you're listening to someone like Thrustmaster reveal a new lineup to their product, which is a new product to their lineup, I should say, which is happening at this year's show. Honeycomb is going to have some new hardware on display. All that stuff is just like, where else in the world would you go to get that? And the answer is there's nowhere else to go.
I didn't realize I was a flight sim geek
Yes, you
until
are.
I went to Flight Sim Expo and started geeking out over not just the hardware. Let's just start with the people. I got to see Matt Davis, Cat Strader, Citation Max, Captain Canada, Jeff Fabiano. Like, I want to go up
Yeah.
and say, hey, man, how are you? I watch you stream all the time. You want to shake my hand or take a picture? And it's funny, they were all welcoming. They're just like
Yeah.
regular folks like me and you, very welcoming. Like, hey, come over, man, let's talk. Let's hang out. They had their booths or whatever they had. They were there. You get to meet your fellow flight simmers. Throughout the year, all you know is a name on a screen, especially people in the chat. And then you show up and you start discovering that these are the people that you talk to all the time. Now they're here with you. Can talk in real life. And at first it's like, okay, this is kind of strange. But then once you get into it, you're like, oh my God, this is good. And then with that picture behind you with the auditorium, being in the presentation, whether it was Laminar or whoever was presenting whatever they had with like-minded people in an auditorium takes on a whole different level of excitement, exhilaration. And it's funny, that whole day went by so quick. I mean, I was just walking around, looking at vendors, talking to vendors, face to face, one-on-one, jumping in a simulator, hands-on with the equipment. And before you know, it's like, oh, it's done. You got to go. I'm like, what? I need 5 more hours. I haven't even looked at lots of stuff to do. So that's what it's like if you guys haven't signed up yet, man. Trust me, consider doing it. Definitely, man. Blue, I mean, what was yours? I met you there.
I mean, the same experience, but again, I've said this before. My probably my favorite part was meeting people in person. Just like Evan said, like in real life, I probably have one friend who like actually like, and I just made this friend recently, that is actually like into aviation and flight sim, and we geek out about it all the time. Whether we're watching it on TV, YouTube, we go drive by the airport slowly,
Yeah.
It's so it's super cool to be in a massive room full of people who all are just the same as you. I was just so easy to make a conversation with anybody. I would just sit in that auditorium right behind you, Evan, and just sit next to a random person and be like, so what do you fly? And
Yeah.
and he'd be like, yeah, man, I've been flying on VATSIM and this plane, this. And he'd be like, a lot of the people I met last time were actually P3D like people.
Yeah.
But we had just as good of conversations talking about their experiences. And I'd be like, yeah, I'm on X-Plane, or at the time I was doing X-Plane. So it's just super dope. It's the people. I mean, yeah, it was great to see some of the bigger names as well. But just meeting just all kind of random people, getting my hands on a lot of the gear that I didn't have, getting to try a full Airbus cockpit that was on the show floor, which was crazy. They had a full motion sim as well by Red something, I can't remember their name.
Redbird.
It was super cool. It was super dope. And then also getting to meet like the developers face to face. Like you said, you don't understand Austin's passion, the maker of X-Plane, until you see him like actually do it. His whole team is passionate. And it's amazing.
Yeah.
The same with a lot of the other developers are the same way too. So that's my favorite part, was the human interaction portion of Flight Sim Expo last time. But again, the exhibits were amazing, and then seeing all the reveals and the roadmap talk, and even one of the things I really enjoyed too, because I was getting into making X-Plane scenery. freeware explain scenery. Back around the time I went to Flight Sim Expo 2019, and so Orbix actually did a seminar on how they made scenery, and I was like, this is freaking gold, because
Yep.
there's no tutorial. They don't have tutorials online to talking
Yep.
about that. I think they actually do now. I think the guy, I don't remember his name. One of the guys has them now. I found him later on, but you don't get that, you know. And I met a few people around there who made small little third party, you know, plugins and add-ons and things like that. And you know, you could talk to them. I talked to the guy who made the TBM, you know, and was talking to him. I mean, not that I'm gonna make a plane, but still, I was curious. You know,
Yep.
he was open for me to ask any question that I had about plane making and whatnot. So just cool, you know, being there and having that contact with those people and them being open to answer any question you have. So I thought that was really cool.
And
Yep.
as of now, Flight Sim Expo is a go, is a green light. I'm all booked up, plane tickets, hotel tickets, rent a car, the whole nine. I know the world is crazy right now, Evan. I mean, uh, on your guys' end, I mean, what's going on? You know, with
Yeah, I mean, you're right. So it's a matter a little bit of taking it day by day, but we are a go. I mean, we're excited to do it. We're planning to do it. We are obviously following and watching very carefully the various COVID numbers. We are obviously going to follow all the state guidelines, federal guidelines that come into play between now and the show. As of today, you know, if the show was to happen tomorrow, masks would be recommended. We're going to ask people to have vaccines, obviously, but that's not something we can enforce as a show organizer. So my hope is that people will do what they feel, you know, is comfortable for them and is safe for them. If the show was to happen today, we would say, yeah, good to go. Obviously, we're going to continue to listen to our developers, listen to the community. You know, as people email me, call me, as developers chat with me, we kind of have this conversation, and everyone's been saying, yeah, we're happy to keep this going. You know, most of the developers that are coming to the show, they just got back from Oshkosh, biggest air show in the world, so
Mm-hmm.
they're like on a big high right now, and they're like, yeah, man, like let's do it. And you know, we have a huge space. We have opportunity to space ourselves out. I think we're totally safe and totally fine to do this. But for those who don't feel comfortable, we're being totally flexible. So if you were planning to come, you change your mind, you get a full refund. The hotel is cancelable up to 48 hours in advance. And as Sizzling Popcorn, thank you for mentioning, we also have the online only registration this year. So if you decide that it's tough to make it to the show in person, it's not the same experience for sure. It's way better to be there. But if you can't be there, for $15, you get access to all the seminars that we just talked about. You get access to product discounts, to an app called Huva that lets you chat with all the attendees in person and virtual, and everything else that's going on at the show. So again, not the same experience, but you'd help us out quite a bit by supporting the show. $15 helps us deal with all those costs that I was mentioning earlier. And again, for 30 plus seminars, including how-to stuff, you know, the developer reveals are one thing, and they are certainly the most exciting. But like you say, we've also gone out and found just really cool people who are simmers, who may not have a YouTube channel and who may not have anything else, but they just want to share what they've got going on. So there's a pilot who's blind who's going to be coming in and talking about how
Cool.
she's able to fly a flight simulation airplane without being able to see. There's the Air Force coming in to talk about how real world fighter jet pilots, almost all of them in the US, use P3D to train before they get in the plane. Almost
Wow.
every single person, same version of P3D that we have.
Wow.
They have like they talk to the same developers too. Like they literally will get on TeamSpeak with Milviz and be like, "We need this from you." That's happening with the U.S. Air Force like today, and they're going to talk about that. The National Transportation Safety Board, which is the aircraft investigation service of the U.S. government that comes in when there's been an accident. We have an investigator coming to talk to us about how they use P3D to recreate the Miracle on the Hudson flight. And when they were investigating that, they're literally using the same stuff that we have to rebuild that exact flight. That stuff is all going to happen, and you have to obviously be there or register to the online only event to be able to see it. And like that stuff, where are you going to find that? Like it
Oh,
just doesn't exist.
that sounds
no. So
amazing. Like I want to hear and see all that stuff. Like I'm, I'm gonna
oh
be
yeah,
at every
I
single seminar. Like that's
I'm reaching out to all the XP72 people. Just say, hey, even if you didn't plan to come to the Flight Sim Expo, you never even thought about doing the online experience, you should.
Yeah,
15
please.
bucks, you know, in the scheme of things is not a lot considering the average scenery is 20 bucks, 25 bucks, the average plane is 80, 90 bucks. 15 bucks to make sure that your hobby continues and is funded and you know, people come together and keep this thing going. Absolutely. I think you guys should, man. I just dropped a link in chat for the Flight Sim Expo website. I'll go ahead and drop it again. If you guys haven't checked it out yet, go ahead. It's just FlightSimExpo.com, and you can read through and see all the vendors, all the, you know, the logistics, the speakers and exhibitors, and the pricing of it, and how you can do the online experience if you're not going to show up in person. I want to be there in person. Like,
Me too.
I mean, I want to be at Flight Sim Expo. Considering what I experienced at the very first one that I went to, I want to be there. You understand? I was able to meet a group of guys that are surrounding me right now. Blue, HD Sim, Captain Geo, CJ Hollister, Captain Rico, people who said to me at the time when they goes, listen, you need to start taking this flight sim thing seriously. And I was like, okay, say no more. And I literally just met those guys on the same day. Now we have talked online, never seen them before. So you never know what kind of friendship or what kind of motivation or what kind of drive you might pick up going to the Flight Sim Expo meeting and talking to people. So I do encourage it, man. Absolutely do encourage that.
I agree.
For,
Same
Yeah, I think
to
the questions.
go
go
ahead.
Go
ahead.
ahead, Blue.
No, go ahead. Saw
All
you.
right, I was going to say that. Well, questions. I mean, that's that's exactly what it's about. Like the Lockheed Martin team who make P3D are coming. They're going to do a Q&A. So like, if you want to ask, like literally, I hope someone asks them, what is the future of your platform? Because I think everyone has assumed that P3D is dead, and that is completely wrong in my opinion. P3D is absolutely not dead, and they have a huge business, in my opinion, with the military, with the government, and I think they're doing just fine. But like, I'd love for someone to stand. I'm sure someone will to stand up and be like, what do you guys have in mind? Because obviously Microsoft Flight Sim, new version of X-Plane probably getting announced at the show. And so what does that mean for P3D? You'll be able to ask them that question. And again, like where else can you do that? And it's really cool when you talk to those guys because they're just like us. Like they're literally flight sim nerds that just happen to work for the biggest like government defense contractor in the world. And that's just like a mind-blowing experience when you actually get to meet them and you're like, huh, so these are the people who code P3D.
I think
Wow.
I'm definitely gonna make sure that question gets asked. If nobody asks it, I'm gonna ask it because I want to know as well.
I am
I
sure.
haven't played P3D. I don't have a P3D background, but I've seen it. I've seen great things about it. But my question is like, yeah, like I said, what's the future of P3D, but specifically for simmers, right? Because I know they're making a lot of coding and technology for the real world and they have a big contract there. But what about our side of it, right? Are we just getting
Yeah.
the leftovers? Are they gonna give us anything extra to make it more, user friendly, or what I mean? And the same kind of with X-Plane, because X-Plane, a lot of their business is mostly from real world stuff, right? They do a lot of, on that side, but then they also have our side. So it's like, so what's you guys' priority? You have a different team on that? Is it the exact same people, or do we have the exact same product? So those are all kind of things that I personally would like to know from both of those developers, and I'm sure the community has a tons of questions as well that they would love to ask them. So
No. Awesome. Um, so as far as the online seminar, because somebody wanted a link in chat for the online registration, does it start on a Friday, to Saturday? How does that work? A
The
bit more about it.
$15 gives you access to the whole 3-day event. So the Friday Q&A sessions, which are called Captain's Corner, the Saturday seminars, and the Sunday seminars, that's all included. Plus access to Huva, the discounts that any developer is doing, live chat with developers, chat with other attendees, all one single price, $15. So you'll get all that live, and obviously you'll have access to the recording. For those who are coming in person, those Friday seminars, they're a $10 add-on to the main registration, and you in-person attendees also get full access to the online stuff. So there's actually some presenters, because obviously Sergio, who's out in Europe, he won't be able to come to the show. Aerosoft, same thing. So they'll be presenting exclusively online. So those who are at the actual show, you probably won't see those, but you'll be able to go back and watch the recording. And obviously, if you're watching the online only show, you'll actually have to choose. There's going to be 3 things. You could either watch room 1, room 2, or you could watch the virtual people. And then obviously you'll have access to the recording. So I mean, there's like hours and hours of content you'll be able to watch at any point over the several months after the show even.
wow.
So here's a controversial question for you. What do you fly? Which platform do you fly? P3D, X-Plane, or Microsoft Flight Sim? What do you fly mostly now?
You know what? I actually mostly control right now. So my last sim was P3D, but that was back in like the version 3.5 days. Every now and again, going back when I was flying more regularly, I would boot up the sim P3D still. Nowadays, I'm primarily VATSIM controller. I don't have a great computer, so I've not been doing much flying, but I still kind of hang out on VATSIM. I control there like 2-3 times a week most of the time, and that's what I mostly do in Flight Sim. And I'm kind of happy about that because I don't want to like be on like I'm an X-Plane guy and then like kind kind of, downplay P3D or Microsoft Flight Sim or something. I like to just say I'm like sim platform agnostic, and I just control and deal with virtual airplanes that way. So that's my side of things right now. And I mean I just love I love controlling. It's been like that for my whole life basically. Like if it was ever like, do I want to fly the sim or do I want to control, it was always control.
That's
Where,
crazy.
where do you control mostly? Where?
Boston.
Well, you're Boston ARTC. Okay, that
So
makes
are
sense.
Yeah.
you like Boston Center? Like what position are
Yep.
you usually at? Boston
I
Center?
mean, I love them all, but if I had my choice, my favorite is like Boston ground during a super busy event. But I'll staff wherever they need me. So I was on. What did I do? We just had Tea Party a couple of days ago, and I did Boston Center toward the end of that. I would probably say most of my time is on center, just because there aren't that many center controllers, and if there's no one else online, like what's the point of opening Boston ground when there's no center overlying
Yeah,
it, right?
yeah.
But
So
I'm
how
happy anywhere, and I think VATSIM is such a great thing for the community. It's obviously been great for my own learning. I think it's phenomenal for anyone who wants to train to become a pilot. And I'm like anywhere I can, and anyone who's saying, I'm not sure if I should get onto VATSIM, you absolutely should. You should not be afraid. You have to do a little bit of homework, and please don't get a 747 and spawn at Boston during Tea Party or cross the pond and ask for VFR close traffic, because that's not going to work, right? But if you've just done that little bit of homework, you'll have a great experience, and there's nothing to be afraid of.
how
Look,
many controllers do you guys have with Boston ARTCC?
I don't know. The latest number is like 60, 70, 80 maybe. It
Wow.
spiked at one point during COVID. I think we've kind of come back down to like a happy 70 or 80.
So if I were to fly into Boston on VATSIM, what is my chances that I'd hear your voice?
Like, but pretty good. So we actually, one of the few ARTCCs that actually publishes a schedule. So you can actually go look at our website, bvartcc.com. And if you ever see the initials RT, that's me. I think I'm next on tomorrow morning, actually.
So
So if you want to find me, you can. And the whole schedule of who all is online and when you can find coverage is right on the website too, which that's been one thing we've always wanted, because it sucks when you're on VATSIM and you're like flying somewhere and the controller closes like right when
oh
you get into
yeah.
the airspace, right? So
yeah.
we've tried to say, hey, we're going to put the times up there so you at least kind of have a sense. And then if I have to close because it said I was going to close at 12, at least you know that that was going to happen.
That's my
Yeah,
luck right there. I always take
Yeah.
off right before they get on, and then I land right after right before they. It's
Yeah.
like the timing is
right.
always horrible. And I'm
I
like,
got a
come
VATSIM
on,
question.
man.
I got a VATSIM question for you. How many people are how many okay, how many flight plans has to be filed out of an area for ATC to jump on? Or is there a criteria that says you hit this much number of people flying on VATSIM in this area and ATC comes on? Do you guys do that at all or no? Am I just imagining that?
No, no, it's really just sort of in most cases, and I think in ours as well, it kind of just more comes down to our own schedule. So for me, like I'll plan out kind of a week or two in advance when I'm going to control. I put it on our schedule, and then I just jump on. Now, if we know something is happening, like if you reach out to us in advance and say, "Hey, I'm going to have a group flight, like leaving Boston at this time on this day," if you reach out to us 2, 3 weeks in advance, we will totally staff up for you, and we really appreciate that. Like it's actually the worst thing that people can do for us as virtual controllers is just like show up with 20 people, because it's going to be bad for you
Oh
and it's
boy.
going to be bad for us. And I got to say, you have a bit of a
XP.
reputation, XP, for doing that.
Oh boy.
And everyone knows it. Like I'm telling you, man, if I
Oh
look
my god.
and there's a whole line of people on VATSIM, and I'll be like, what is going on with that line of people? Someone's like, oh, XP72 is streaming. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. So you have a bit of a reputation for doing
Oh
that.
my God.
But you know what? That's okay, because it's allowed. The network allows it, and if you guys are having fun, that's great.
It's not on purpose. It's just like, it's my fault in the sense that I don't plan like 4 days in advance. It's
Yeah,
literally 24 hours is usually the time I kind of do to say,
The conga
because,
line.
okay, the Congo line, right? I try to keep my simming fun. And part of the fun is not trying to plan stuff in advance. It's sitting down going, I haven't
yeah,
flown this airport. I haven't flown this airplane. Let's jump on this place and fly out of there. And then thank you to my audience. They just jump on and go, yeah, we're flying too. And before you know
yeah.
it, there's like 20 people. Like, crap. No, I can't get out of Boston in the 35 minutes I wanted to. It's an hour and a half because there's like 10 people ahead of me, but it's fine. You know what I mean? And I
Well,
do
and that's
appreciate, let me just say, I do appreciate VATSIM and all you guys do. That's all I fly on, and I love it.
Yeah, no, I mean, then I was just say that's the challenge, right? Is like you guys all show up, and again, it's not your fault. Like I think that's wonderful that you want to do that, but then from our perspective as controllers, right? I might be the only person there working Boston Center, so I've got everything at Boston, but I've also got 10 other major airports in my airspace and about another 40 small airports that may have stuff going on. And all of a sudden, I start to see 10 or 15 people on the ground at Boston. I'm like, oh no. And it's bad. I feel bad for you guys because you're all asking me for clearance, but I've got other people in the airspace who are also wanting my attention. And so if we're, I will send, like, we have a Discord, obviously. I'll send a message, say, hey, we've got a bunch of people at Boston, like, who can help? But it's just who's around, right? So if it's the middle of the day on a Friday, everyone's at work, everyone's at school, you guys are just going to have to wait, which I feel bad for you, right? Because then you guys have a bad experience. So it is what it is, right? As long as you guys are having fun, that's
I
great.
won't say,
And
yeah, I'm sorry. I won't say we have ever had a bad experience, to be honest. I mean, there was one out of Jackson Hole, but I didn't realize Jackson Hole is like a non-radar airport or something like that. So the spacing had to be a certain way. And now I learned that. You know what I mean? But other than that, it's been good. It's been great. You guys are on and you're a good sport about it. The only other thing I was gonna say with VATSIM is that it's funny because I did a VATSIM tutorial and it's like one of the ones that gets the most comment even to this day after I did it a year, like almost like a year ago. People are still asking, like, want to get on VATSIM, and I encourage them. As
yeah,
long as you understand what you need to do, get on it, and the controllers will help you out. Just don't
yeah,
be an idiot.
and watch people on YouTube or Twitch. I mean, there's pilots who stream, and there's now controllers who stream on Twitch. There's not very many of them. There's about 5 or 6, but they're all great, and you can find them on mostly Twitch. I don't know if there's anyone on YouTube who's a VATSIM controller who streams. Sheet is one of them. Who else? Merides, I believe is her name, is another one. They're great people to watch. And so if you're kind of nervous about talking to controllers, you can actually just watch, like, this is what they're doing. And in the case of Sheet, I'm just going to pick on him because he's a Boston controller and a great friend of mine. I've known him for like 15 years and we grew up together almost, in terms of how we progressed through aviation. He's also a real pilot now.
Wow.
And so, like, if you are kind of nervous about VATSIM, just watch his stream because he's going to be sitting there with probably a beer or some other Starbucks drink with his beard, with his cat walking over his keyboard. And if you're ever nervous, just look at him and he's like, okay, he's not that scary.
Yep. I just dropped the link for Boston ARTCC because TJSJ San Juan 1986, I like to call him, ask what's the website for it. So I think I have forum.bvartcc.com. I did a
Yeah,
link
that'll work.
for the Boston ARTC, so you guys can check their schedule out and see when they're going to be on. I mean, I love Boston. Boston got what, the Iron Mike Award or something like that. Though you guys are always on point, man. A little bit too.
Yeah, back when they used to do that, we're staffed a fair bit. But there's lots of great facilities, and I don't want to make it like one versus another. And they're all a little bit different, right? So some places are like a little more realistic, some places are a little bit more chill, and I think that's wonderful. And if if you're someone who like is interested in controlling, there's the opportunity at VATSIM to be able to do that too. And that's a really eye-opening experience. Like if you're thinking, you've kind of had a lot of fun flying on VATSIM, the controlling side is also really interesting. And obviously, you can do both. So I think it's a really cool thing. That takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of training, a lot of time, but I think it's cool.
So
You
for
got
those who are interested in that, how would somebody get into becoming a controller of like their local area? Because that's usually what happens. They want to be controlling of
Yeah.
their home airport because they don't get much control there probably.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a difference depending on where you are, and I can talk a little bit to the U.S. So in the case of the United States, there's a group called VAT USA, which is the group that handles air traffic control in the U.S., and their website is vatusa.net. If you go there, you'll be able to see what you need to do to join as a controller. It's a huge, like, don't get me wrong, it's not like I want to do this one night, so you're going to jump on it. It is a huge commitment. So you're going to go through a couple of knowledge tests. You're going to go through a pile of reading. You're probably going to go through a few more knowledge tests when you get assigned to a local facility like Boston or New York or Washington. From there, you're going to be assigned a person to work with, or you may actually just request training from a pool of mentors. You're probably going to go through somewhere between 2 and 12, 15 hours of training. And all of that gets you certified to work a very small airport and only on the ground position. And then it's going to be another year or two before you could actually be fully certified to work center. So it's a huge commitment in time, and it's a huge commitment in like self-study, because there's not really a big course for this. It's more like, here's a bunch of reading, go do it and figure it out. And we try to help people as best we can. But at Boston, we might have 80 or 90 controllers, and we might have 10 or 15 instructors. So you can see that you're not going to get someone hand holding you all the way through.
Yeah.
But if you like it, if you think it's interesting, and if you're willing to commit to it over a long time, once you become certified, being able to work busy events and line up airplanes and see like what all goes on behind the scenes. Like if we have a group flight of 10 or 15 people that we know is coming into the airspace, maybe they're coming from Chicago, there's probably like 15 or 20 different people in VATSIM who are part of that process. Some are controllers, but some are looking at the overall airspace flow. Some are giving times for when people should be released. Some are dealing with routes. And we're planning right now for an event that's happening like a month and a half out.
Wow.
And we're talking about how are we going to structure these routes and plan these things. And it's all designed so that when you guys get on the network, we don't have to say to you, you're going to have to wait 2 hours to go to New York, which we hate doing.
I got a
Wow.
question.
I'm just like blown away. Like I had no idea all that was
Yep.
going on behind my back.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I got a question from chat. V1 Sim wanted to know, have you ever considered a real life ATC? You know, he said he had a buddy of his who used to fly and then went to air traffic control. Have you ever considered that?
Yeah, I've thought about it a few times over the years. I think, for me as a pilot, I don't mind staying up all night because at least I get to go somewhere. I don't know that I'd like to have a night shift to center and then end up having to drive home in my car at the end of the night. So I don't know if it's for me in real life. I think it's really cool we get to do on VATSIM because we can do like different positions at different airports and different times, and you kind of can do it whenever you want. I know lots of people from VATSIM who have become real controllers and they love it. And I think it's a really cool career. I don't know that it's something that I would be interested in myself, and I'm getting to the point anyway where I'd be too old. But I mean, it's certainly a cool career, and if anyone wants to do it in real life, it's probably easier to get into the FAA and control in real life than it is on VATSIM at times. And that's a really cool career that you don't need any experience for. So you can actually apply like right on the FAA's website and become a controller if you want.
I would like to say that from my point of view, it is definitely looks easier to become a real life controller than to be a VATSIM controller. Nothing against VATSIM, but I actually at one point, like a couple of years ago, I actually looked into it. I've kind of been like all over in Flight Sim. I've kind of like, all right, let me see if I like this. Let me see if I can make some scenery. You know what I mean? Just kind of see where I can fit in. And I just thought about could be VATSIM here in Texas, because this is where I live. And I looked into it. I found out where to start the process, signing up and all that. And I got to the part where I got to the reading, and I was like, yeah, this is not for me.
Yeah. No, it's a huge commitment, and it's all self-study, and then it takes like forever because again we're dealing with volunteers, right? So I am an instructor at Boston. If a student gets assigned to me, it's probably a month and a half of like training, and we're going to do probably 6 or 7 sessions. Each is going to take an hour and a half. So like already there's about 10 hours of like dedicated training time, and I'm expecting that student is going to go to their own reading, do their own research, and be ready for every single session. So it is a big commitment because there's a lot to learn, and you as a pilot, right? If you come on the network and a controller just says to you, yeah, clear for takeoff and nothing else, like you're gonna be like, hey, what the heck? What's going on here, right? So you demand a high quality of experience, and therefore we demand a lot from our controllers as well.
I asked in the chat if they would fast track you if you have talent. Can you be fast tracked or no?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the facility. We generally at Boston, I think we try to be respectful of people's previous experience, but also like the reality is that controlling virtual planes is very different. So we have had real world controllers who we've put on busy positions and events, and they haven't done well because there's a different skill set that you need. In real life, it's like a super structured environment. Like, I talked about the behind the scenes stuff at VATSIM. That stuff happens like times a million in real life. And so in real life, you just don't deal with a lot of the things that we have to deal with. And that's not to even mention people's simulators acting up and their autopilot breaking, or this guy just lost connection, which we have in Flight Sim that they don't have in real life. So I think we will respect that previous experience, at least from Boston's perspective, and we'll try to make sure that it doesn't take forever. Like, we're not going to make you jump through hoops you don't have to jump through, but there will be some learning there. Other facilities may do things differently. And again, this is with the US, right? There's Canada, there's Mexico, there's parts of Europe have their own different rules. So everywhere is a little bit different. And depending where you want to control, the process is going to be a little different. I know the UK, it's like you have to win the lottery to become a controller there at times, I've heard. And then there's facilities in the US where you can actually just join them and be controlling the next day because they're short on people or they happen to have a lot of instructors available. So it just depends a bit on the individual player.
The next question was, is VATSIM, would you consider VATSIM a good springboard to the real world thing or no?
Well, it worked for me.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's great. You're a pilot.
Oh, I got a great question in chat. Why did you choose Boston instead of Canada?
Yeah, that is a good question, actually. I actually, it was just sort of by pure happenstance. This goes back to my FSX Beyond GameSpy days. Sorry, the dog is barking again. FSX Beyond GameSpy days when there was a server called Boston Virtual ATC, and I just joined it by accident, really. Happened to get controlling there, happened to like the group of people that was there. That group merged with the VATSIM Boston group back in 2015, and I just happened to know the airspace. Nothing against Canada. I like Toronto, but I don't know. I've always been at Boston for whatever reason.
Are you able to control in different areas, like besides like outside of your coverage, or can you only choose one? Like I'm gonna only do Boston.
No, you can we call visit at different facilities. So once you're certified at one place, you can then visit at, I think there's a certain limitation on it, but you can kind of go to other places. You usually have to do a quick checkout there to make sure you know the local procedures, but lots of people, might work at Boston and New York, or they might work at Boston and a place in Canada,
Hmm.
or they even visit across the pond. So we've had visitors from Europe who come to Boston just because they want to see how the US work.
Cool.
Wow, this is fascinating, guys. Welcome to the Blu-XPerience.
Yeah, I feel
Started
like we could
talking
have had a whole episode about VATSIM.
just no. Actually, you know what? We do need to have you back just for VATSIM only because we have so much new people joining from Xbox alone and so forth and so on. And we could just do a whole hour on VATSIM by itself. We talked about Flight Sim Association. We talked about FS Expo. But VATSIM though, let's go back. How is it with the new platform, Microsoft Flight Sim, and FMC is not ready yet, and AIRAC is not up to date? How are you guys managing with that? Oh boy.
No, you know what? So I've heard a lot of, people have different opinions and stuff, right? So a lot of people get frustrated at times. For me, it's like, look, if you're trying and if the plane doesn't work, fine. I can live with that. So that's okay. That's just life, right? And I realize that the sim doesn't work perfectly with FMCs and with different runway transitions. So for me, like if I see somebody on Microsoft Flight Sim and I see them going the wrong way, I just give them a heading and it's no big deal. Some people may be a little more frustrated than others by that kind of thing, but that's just life. It has been difficult to deal with at times, but what's not difficult is just how much more traffic there's been, how much more excitement that there's been. And, we already see a lot of VFR stuff at Boston, a lot of people going to non-towered airports and things like that, but that just got exacerbated by Microsoft Flight Sim. It's been really fun. Like when it first came out, I remember working and there were more VFR planes not talking to me because they were all flying over their house or flying along the roads and stuff. That's really cool stuff, and that you didn't really see as often before. So I think anything that rises the tide and gets more people involved in the community, I think that's great.
Do you want Xbox on VATSIM?
No.
Oh, that is
Said it here,
wow.
guys. There it
That's
is.
it. Okay, we're done.
That's a wrap. Thank you guys for coming to the Blu-XPerience.
We discussed that last week, because the message at VATSIM dropped on us, and you know, um, a similar, what's going to happen? Is there pros? Is it cons to it? But coming from a controller, that's something else. You know what I mean? You're just thinking, what doesn't you're just not going to be ready for what's required to fly on the network.
Well, I mean, you need to be able to talk to ATC, which I guess you can do in some cases, but not everyone would have a headset. And you also need to be able to do things like program an FMS and be able to fly the airplane effectively. And I'm just not sure the Xbox is the right platform for that. And I worry a little bit that, if you are somebody who maybe is on Xbox and you've tried Microsoft Flight Simulator's multiplayer, you might be thinking, well, that's what VATSIM is like. And it's not, right? VATSIM is a little bit more serious than that. There are rules. You got to talk to your traffic control, all those things. So I just worry that people may not quite have that full understanding. Hey, if people on the Xbox can fly airplanes the way they can on desktop, if they can program SIDS and stars, if they're going to do that, if they can successfully take off and land and fly headings and hold altitudes and navigate, if they can do that on Xbox, then fine. Then welcome them on the network. I'm just not sure that like the Xbox platform allows for that. What do you guys think? What's your opinion on that?
Mine was pretty much, the Xbox has brought in a new group of simmers, which is great. And a lot of them, I think, well, not a lot of them, but some of them are going to see what we do on the PC side and want to come over and continue. But yeah, as you said, the Xbox is just not ready to those things. So bringing them on would just be confusion and just a headache for you guys. We want as much people on the network as possible. You understand? I don't know if you guys would be ready for it as far as staffing is concerned, but we would love well, you know what? Do I love more traffic? No, I think my traffic is fine.
I like knowledgeable traffic, right?
Yeah.
People who want to
Yes.
learn and want to play. That's what I want. But honestly, if you're not like, if you don't want to, if you're not really invested in it, it doesn't matter what platform you use, right? But if you're not invested in the concept of like, I want to fly the airplane properly, then it really doesn't work very well, because unfortunately there are a few of those people, and they just ruin the experience for everybody else. I don't think they're mostly doing it on purpose. Like the people who are doing it on purpose, we just ban them, so that's fine. But the people who, are just there, like they don't really take it seriously because they think it's a game. Those people unfortunately just have a negative experience than everyone else, because they're the people you have to vector 4 times for the approach, and now there's a lineup, and now people are holding because this one person, doesn't really want to play.
Hmm.
So those people are very challenging. I'm not saying they're Xbox people, but there may be, if you're a casual person and you like to just fly the simulator, there's lots of places for that. I don't think VATSIM is the right place for it. So I wouldn't say it's all about numbers. Again, I don't speak for VATSIM. I should just be clear. I'm not authorized to speak for VATSIM or VAT USA. I'm just giving my own opinion as a simmer. But that's what it is. I just don't know that if you're someone who's on Xbox and you fit that stereotype, you're probably going to be very happy in Microsoft Flight Simulator multiplayer, and that is awesome for you. And if you find a place that you like, great. Whether it's VATSIM or not, doesn't bother me.
But isn't there I wouldn't say strict, but a kind of an onboarding process to get on the VATSIM now? Starting off with when Microsoft, I noticed it when Microsoft Flight Simulator came out.
Yeah.
That not, I was gonna say you guys, but again, you don't represent VATSIM as a whole. But VATSIM started a process where you have to like sign up and do like a test and all these different things, even get approved to get on VATSIM, which should help filter out some of those people who just want to hop on and troll or just hop on and just fly around on their house. Like I thought that would kind of help the issue. So with Xbox, just ignoring the whole technical issue side of it, wouldn't that help even with the Xbox users as well?
Yeah, I haven't seen the actual exam because I'm already a member, so I haven't seen the questions. But yes, you would think that would. And there is, you mentioned the technical limitation. Like as far as I know, you can't run the programs that connect you to VATSIM on the Xbox. And I don't think anyone is going to be coding anything anytime soon that allows for that. So that is a huge hurdle. But yeah, I mean, I think that may help a little bit. So again, I don't really that my point wasn't like necessarily around Xbox versus PC. It was more just like general maturity of
Mm-hmm.
person. But conceptually, I don't know. Like, I mean, even if someone wants to take it seriously, does an Xbox controller like actually give you enough control? And I guess there's headsets. I mean, I don't know, it may be possible. It's hard to envision, and maybe that's just because it's different.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you guys prefer, IFR traffic or VFR traffic?
I like them both. I love what we get at Boston is really fun. It's a mix. Actually, that's my favorite is when we get like a real good push of IFR airplanes, and then we have like a Cessna 172, and you're like, well, this guy can do 70 knots on final, and the jets can go 180, and how the heck do I deal with this? So we're fortunate we have this virtual island called Cape Air Virtual, which is totally a real thing. They fly Cessna 402s in and out of Boston all the time,
Yeah, I've
and
seen
so
them.
there's these really cool procedures where they'll like fly an ILS to one runway and break it off and circle to land at another runway in certain weather conditions. And we do that stuff. And
Wow.
that's what's really fun for me is like when you get all these mix of different aircraft types. And so, yeah, there's like the jetliners and they're a lot of fun to deal with. Then you got to deal with a slow guy and put him in the middle of it. That's the fun challenge for us as controllers.
Yeah, I
Wow.
saw Cape Bears. I seen them when I was in Boston in real life, and I was like, huh. It's like you see, this is a big international airport, just like any other airport, like
Hmm.
Heathrow, whatever. Our airliners everywhere, and have this little section of the airport, which is a bunch of little Cessnas or whatever you call those
Yeah.
things. It's
Yeah.
pretty cool. And then you see them taxi. They do this, they're on the same runways as everybody else,
Yep.
so it's really interesting.
As far as real world flying, I had a question here in chat. It says, ask Evan what airlines look out for when hiring pilots, since you're a real world pilot. By the way, guys, if you're just joining me, Evan is also a real world pilot of the ERJ.
ERJ.
And yeah, we haven't even gotten into that yet. But airlines look out for anything specifically when you're hiring pilots? I mean,
You'd have to ask them. I don't know. I think honestly, my like joking answer is that we are so short on pilots right now that they look for a pulse, and that's basically it. And a license, I guess you probably need that too.
Wow.
I mean, I'm sure there's things that help beyond anything else, but I do think we're very fortunate as pilots right now that we have a lot of choice in where we go because the airlines are short on people.
Mhm.
I really don't think I could speak intelligently to like what airlines look for when they're hiring. I don't want to give any false information. So I'm just gonna say that we're in a very good spot when it comes to the pilot shortage. And if anyone's thinking about the career as a pilot, like I started when I was in my 20s, it's probably not too late for you either, even with the pandemic.
So how are you enjoying the ERJ? What version of the ERJ do you fly? And what aircraft do you have your eye on if you want to go to something else?
I fly the Embraer 175. The company I work for has that, or a CRJ, or the Dash, the Dash 8Q, so the Q400. So I think either the CRJ or the ERJ would be a lot of fun at this particular company. Longer term, I think anything narrow body is kind of interesting. So whether it's the 7.3 Max or the Airbus or anything like that, anything narrow body with like, a lot of up and down takeoffs and landings. I think I'm more interested in that than like the big wide body stuff. But I like the Embraer. I think it's an interesting mix of Boeing and Airbus. I like the weird handlebar yoke. It kind of fits for me. It makes sense when you like if you sit in front of it and you do this, you get why they designed it that way because that's where your knees go, and it kind of makes good sense. And it's got its quirks like any airplane, but the ones that we flew had a pretty advanced avionics package with like a proper VNAV, which the CRJ doesn't have, so any VNAV, and I quite liked it.
So you're saying the handlebars come naturally? How quick? How quick does the
It didn't
handlebars come
didn't take
naturally?
me didn't even think about it. It was like totally fine.
Wow, jeez. Because I
Yeah.
look at those things going, what? Okay, it's
They
good to
look
know.
weird, but it really like again when you sit there and you can turn the yoke and you see like your leg fits perfectly where the handlebar goes and you're like, oh, that's why they did that. And I came off of again King Airs and Navajos, which just had a standard yoke. It really didn't bother me. Like it was just kind of felt natural.
Even with the the thumb trim switch up and down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Now
Good.
again, I haven't flown a Boeing. I haven't flown an Airbus, so I can't speak to
Right.
how those,
No,
operate
awesome.
or how those would feel.
Awesome.
But the Embraer, I'm pretty happy with. Like I hear a lot of the complaints from Boeing guys about the small cockpit and the fact that there's no space for anything. And I'm grateful that even on a regional jet, we don't have that problem.
Which
Wow.
ARJ in any sim would you fly? Would you say comes close to the real thing? Any at all?
Yeah, I really can't speak to that one either because I don't know. I have tried the one in P3D. I've never tried the X-Crafts one. The new X-Crafts one, just like from the pictures, looks really cool. So I would kind of be interested in trying that. And they're apparently announcing something at Expo. I don't know what it is, but they'll be announcing something to do with that. So if they were there, which I don't think they would be, I would be like down to try it for sure. But I can't give you a great answer as to what might be the best aircraft systems model because I haven't tried enough of them.
Jeez. Blue, go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, I had one just to kind of backstep the Flight Sim Expo. I wanted to say how important I think FS Expo is for the entire community because it gives developers like an X-Crafts, like an Aerosoft, like a Thrustmaster, like a Orbix. It gives them kind of like a Super Bowl to promote
Yeah.
and to like really help their businesses as developers. Again, I'm not a developer, but I know that they work really hard and they probably don't get paid nowhere near as much as they should, even though we complain about the prices being too high. And I'll admit to that. But it gives them like an avenue, you know what I mean? Because other than that, throughout the year, they're like doing their own pushes of advertising and hoping that people get excited about their release coming out. But whenever it comes to an expo or an actual physical event, they can actually use that event, the hype around that event, to also hype up their own business, show different sides of the business, be more transparent. You know what I mean? Like we talked about. So I just think that Flight Sim Expo and events like this are super important for the community to have, so that we can kind of like all kind of rally behind around something. You know what I mean? It's kind of like every sport has like a team, and they get excited when they have a game or when they're doing good. So it's good to have like that physical thing to rally behind as a community.
Yeah, I think I was listening. May have been TFDI, and if it's not, then I'm giving Josh Riley credit for nothing. So you're welcome. But he said that when you're actually as a developer, when you're on the stage and you announce something, and you can see people's faces and see their reactions, you know right away, like yes, this is going to be a great product because they're excited and they're reacting. Or you can watch their faces and go, "Uh-oh, we did something wrong," and you don't get that any other way, right? It's not the same reading comments on a Facebook post or reading messages on a forum board. You can't go anywhere and just like watch people's eyes light up as you press that button the way that to the guys who made GSX FS Dream Team, the way that they did that at our show in 2018. And Robert Randazzo and PMDG launched that global flight operations product, which was really, really fun at Flight Sim Expo 2018. And again, like the reaction in the room was really interesting to see. And Robert's an amazing, amazing speaker. Like it was incredible to just sit there and listen to him talk for 45 minutes, let alone what he was actually saying. So as a developer, as you say, not only the fact that you kind of get excited about all this, but just like the ability to get great feedback and to meet people and to hear like people were walking up to me and saying cool stuff about Expo. I can only imagine if I built an airplane and somebody walked up to me and was like, "Yo, I used your airplane to train for the real thing." Like that'd be such a cool thing to hear as a developer.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, wow, wow. Blue, we got lucky today. We
Yeah.
had we have the trifecta, FS Expo, Flight Sim Association, Simulation Association, VATSIM. Actually, no, Quad Vector, Real World Pilot. Man, we got to bring
Yeah,
you on.
like
We have to
everything.
back on again. This is good, man. This is great. Absolutely. I have definitely appreciate the explain video that you did, or the interview with Austin Myron and those guys. If you guys haven't seen that, you need to watch it as well. Is that on the website, the FlightSim Association website?
Yeah, it's under recorded webinars. That's probably the best place to watch it because we put in a bunch of chapters, so you can actually just skip to where you want to go. It's also on the X-Plane YouTube channel if you can see it there as well. That came together. We're very lucky that came together because they did it live from Oshkosh, and the internet there is not good in the best of times because they have like 100,000 people in like an airport. So that was really glad that it worked out. But yeah, they shared some cool screenshots, some cool videos, and they have said that they are going to show even more of that and hint at FlightSim Expo. So that's going to be, I think, a really big announcement from them. I'm not sure how much I can say about it, so maybe I will just leave it at the fact that
I mean,
if you
you're gonna
like
get in
that
trouble, you can get
Q&A,
in trouble here with us.
Yeah.
I'll just say that if you like that Q&A, you're going to like the one at FlightSim Expo as well.
Beautiful.
There you go. Well,
Beautiful.
ladies and gentlemen, people, this is it. FlightSim Expo 2021. Blue Games is going to be there. XP is going to be there, and of course, Evan, of course, is going to be there very early since Thursday. You're going to be there Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
I'm not gonna tell you when I'm gonna be there because every year I try and go there one day earlier because I want to be the first person there because I need like a day to decompress. And every year somebody figures out that I was there on that day, and they're like, "Oh, hey, you're here," and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, let's go for dinner. Yeah, okay." So I'm not saying what day I'm gonna be there, but I want one day to myself, damn it, and then I'll be on FlightSim Expo. But it will be before Thursday.
But yes, I am confirmed. I have my confirmation ticket and all that good stuff. I am still working on a hotel. Haven't got that yet, so I'm working on that. But I do have my flight, and I'm planning to be there, I believe, on Friday morning. So I leave on Monday. So I'll be there for a few days, hanging out, and that's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to it, man. I've been waiting for it for a long time. I hope the world figures its life out, so we can still make it out there. And yeah, looking forward to seeing
San Diego
all
too. Like we haven't even talked about San Diego. Like there's
yeah.
beaches, shopping. We have a discount at the Air and Space Museum, discount at the Science Center, the Midway Museum, which is on a floating aircraft carrier. I don't want to take any more time, but like San Diego, dude, it's the best. We're so
I
excited.
forgot about all those things. Like, sheesh.
Yeah. I mean, not just the show, but like everything else to do.
Yeah. My wife's going, the hand of God. And it's also a vacation for me too. So we're getting Friday, the show whole day Saturday, Sunday we have hanging out, Monday we're hanging out. We're gonna, I'm glad you said that. So we get a discount at the museum, the Flight Museum, which is right on the flight
which is awesome. I went there a couple of years ago. It's great.
Have to do that.
I've never been there.
So so don't just make it about the show, guys. If you're planning on coming, there's still time. 40, how many days left? It's
43, 44. Yeah, it's getting close.
Yeah, exactly. You can't fly international anyway right now in most places. So let's go to San Diego. It's international.
Absolutely.
Right? Absolutely. Good, let's do it, man. Let's get FlightSim Expo off the ground. Let's show the world that, hey, despite what's going on, craziness, we can still have fun. We can still get together and meet and continue to live our lives.
Yeah.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Well, Evan, thanks for coming, man. Thanks for sharing with us and chilling with us.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I have so much more respect for you now. I mean, I respected you before. I did, but it's like I didn't realize that you were a pilot. I didn't realize all these things in your background. So it's I learned a lot. So I think that the audience probably feels the same. I'm sure. But we're just honored to have you with us today, man. You're like famous.
It's been not at all. No, it's been a lot of fun to be here with you guys. I'm constantly in awe of all you content creators, the way you put yourselves out there, the amount of stuff you do for the community. That video that you did for us on FlightSim Association, which if you guys haven't seen it, go to the head tracking and VR page of FlightSim Association. You'll see Blue's beautiful face. You did it just like it was like 3 minutes of absolute gold on head tracking, which is such an important thing. Like track IR, and you did like 3 or 4 different things. It was like beautiful, just beautiful. So people should watch that. I'm just so grateful for you guys helping us spread the word. We absolutely could not do it without you. So thank you, and thank you for having me. And I hope I could be entertaining at least a little bit for a few minutes. Thank you.
Awesome. Meet you in person in 40-something days, man. Thank you so much.
You got it.
Well, anyways, guys, got XP.
Yep.
Evan.
We are out. Have a great weekend. We didn't even talk about drinks, but it's all good. And we will see you guys. We haven't even talked about what we're doing for the weekend, but you guys will figure it out. We're online. Evan, thank you so much. Have a great
pleasure.
And remember, you guys have 3 choices. Give up, give in, give it all you got. Peace, love, and God bless you. We'll see you guys next time. Next video. We out. Peace.